The Galactic Military Academy floated above the blue gas clouds of Orion 9. Thousands of new alien recruits filled the grand hall, their armor shining under bright white lights. The air was heavy with pride and excitement. For many, this was their first step toward becoming defenders of the galaxy. At the center stood Commander Varric, a tall, gray-scaled officer from the core species. His voice was deep and cold as he began the ceremony. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy," he said. "From today, you serve under the unified command. You will follow orders without question." The recruits stood tall, their faces showing eagerness and pride. Some whispered among themselves about who would be assigned to which unit. Then Varric's tone changed. The next words silenced the entire hall. "By order of the Galactic Council," he said, "the participation of the human species in all military operations is officially banned." A moment of confusion spread through the hall. Then came the laughter. A blue-skinned cadet named Trella burst out laughing. "Humans? Were they even real soldiers?" she said. Others joined in. "I heard they used bullets," one shouted. "And they cried when they lost comrades," another added. The hall filled with jokes and mocking voices. Only Commander Varric remained still. He looked at the sea of young faces laughing without understanding. His golden eyes narrowed. He had once served near the border of human space. He knew the truth. He had seen what they could do. When the ceremony ended, the recruits moved to their quarters, still laughing about the emotional Earth species. But Varric walked to his private chamber. The door slid shut behind him, leaving silence. He stood before a large screen on the wall. The system waited for his command. "Open archive access," he ordered. Authorization Varric 70. A list of restricted files appeared in front of him. Most were locked, but one caught his attention. It was marked Footage, Earth Unit 9. The date was from 20 years ago. He had never seen this file before. The Council had wiped all records of human involvement. Curiosity pushed him forward. "Play file," he said. The screen turned black. Then a shaky image appeared. The camera showed a battlefield under a red sky. Human soldiers were trapped behind broken walls, their armor scratched and their faces covered in dirt. Explosions thundered around them. Their weapons looked outdated, but their eyes burned with something fierce. The sound of shouting filled the room. "Hold the line," a human officer yelled. "No retreat." Varric leaned closer. The humans were fighting against raiders from the Kryn Empire. He remembered them, a merciless force that had destroyed whole worlds. Yet the humans stood firm. They fought in formation, covering one another with precise movement. Every time a soldier fell, another took their place. Then the feed flickered. The signal broke for a second and returned, showing a closer view. The human commander was a woman with short, dark hair. Blood ran down her cheek, but her eyes were calm. She raised her rifle and shouted, "For Earth!" The sound of her voice cut through the chaos. Every soldier around her roared back, their unity shaking even the ground beneath them. Varric felt his throat tighten. He had seen many species fight, but never like this. The humans did not fight for power or glory. They fought for each other, for something invisible yet unbreakable. The footage jumped forward. The camera now showed a wide shot from the sky. The human unit was surrounded. The Kryn ships fired energy blasts, but the humans moved together like one body. They attacked from angles no machine could predict. Then came silence. The last seconds of the video showed smoke, dust, and broken armor. The signal cut off. Varric stood there without moving. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the ship's systems. His hands shook slightly. He replayed the video again. This time he watched their faces, determination without fear. The kind of bravery that came from knowing death was close, but fighting anyway. Why would the Council ban such warriors? Why erase their name? He walked to the observation window and looked at the stars outside. The galaxy was full of chaos and fear. Every world claimed to stand for order, but he had just seen something pure, something that the galaxy might never understand. His communicator beeped. A message appeared on the screen. It was a warning from the Central Command. "Unauthorized access detected. Return to duty immediately." Varric closed the message without replying. His eyes returned to the star field. Somewhere out there was the truth. The humans were gone, but their spirit was not. He whispered softly, "You can ban a name, but not what it stands for." Far away, inside the Academy's main system, the video file flickered again. A hidden code awakened in the background, spreading quietly through the data lines. On the final frame of the video, the human commander's face appeared for a brief second. Her lips moved as if she was speaking. No sound came through, but one word formed clearly: "Watch." The screen went dark. The next morning, the Academy's training fields echoed with the noise of drills. Alien recruits shouted commands, fired plasma rifles, and practiced formation maneuvers. Their voices were full of pride and competition. None of them knew what Commander Varek had seen the night before. Varek stood on the command balcony silent, watching the rows of cadets move below. The laughter and arrogance he heard reminded him of the recruits' reaction to the human ban. Every joke about humanity's weakness felt heavier now. The memory of the human commander's voice stayed in his mind. He turned to the communication console. "Access file Earth Unit 9 again," he ordered. The system responded with a warning. "File restricted. Council authorization required." He overrode it. "Authorization Varek 70 override code Delta." The file opened. The same static returned, then the same battlefield. But this time, there was more. A hidden segment had unlocked. The time marker showed a few minutes after the previous cutoff. The camera panned across the ruined landscape. Smoke covered the horizon. Human soldiers moved through the dust, checking weapons, dragging the wounded to cover. The enemy's ships filled the sky like black clouds. Varek adjusted the playback speed, slowing the image. He studied every movement. The humans were communicating through hand signals and short radio bursts. No panic, no confusion, only discipline and focus. The human commander's voice came again. "Unit 9, prepare the charge." One of the recruits, Trella, entered the room without permission. She had followed Varek, curious about his strange behavior. "Commander, what are you watching?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "History," he said. "Sit down." Trella obeyed. When she saw the screen, her smile faded. "These are humans?" "Yes," Varek said. "The ones your friends were laughing about." On the screen, the humans began to move forward. The camera followed as they ran across the broken ground, straight into enemy fire. Explosions tore through the field, but they didn't stop. Plasma bolts lit the air like blue lightning, yet the humans pushed on. Trella leaned forward. "They are attacking?" "Against that," Varek nodded slowly. "They don't retreat. Watch closely." The camera shook as a shockwave hit. One soldier fell, hit in the chest, but the others lifted him and kept going. They reached a ridge and took defensive positions. The commander shouted orders. "Left flank hold. Right flank suppress. Target the carrier." The view shifted to a massive Kryn war carrier landing nearby. The humans aimed all their weapons at it. Their rifles glowed red from heat, but they didn't stop firing. Varek could almost feel the heat and sound of battle through the screen. The humans fought with everything they had. One by one they fell, but every death slowed the enemy's advance. Then something strange appeared. The humans placed small metallic rods in the ground and activated them. Energy pulses spread across the field. The alien systems on the enemy side began to flicker. "What is that?" Trella whispered. "Adapted field dampeners," Varek said. "Old tech, but they made it work." The footage zoomed closer on the commander's face. Her helmet visor was cracked. Her voice was calm. "All units, link frequency 2-4. Begin phase 2, Varek frowned. "Phase 2? He muttered. Suddenly all human soldiers stopped shooting. They closed their eyes for a brief moment. Then their vitals on the screen spiked. Heart rates, neural signals, energy readings, all rising. The battlefield lit up. Human bodies glowed faintly, as if energy flowed through their veins. Their weapons overloaded, firing bursts stronger than before. The enemy ranks began to collapse. Trella gasped. "They are using their own bodies as conduits." "That should kill them." "Yes," Varek said quietly. "But they are not afraid to die." The video cut again, but before it ended, a final image flashed. The human commander raised her arm and shouted, "For those who stand!" Then the screen turned black. Varric leaned back. His mind raced. The Council had called humanity reckless, unstable, emotional. But what he saw was something else. Discipline and courage so strong, it bent the rules of survival. Trella looked pale. Why was this hidden? The Council should have shown this to everyone. Varric stared at the dark screen. Because fear is easier to control than respect. Outside the Academy's training bells rang again. Recruits gathered for combat lessons, unaware that their commander had just uncovered the reason behind the ban. Varric copied the footage onto a private data crystal and locked it in his pocket. He could feel his pulse rising. Something about that message at the end, "Watch," echoed in his mind. That night, when the Academy lights dimmed, Varric sat alone again. He opened the file once more. But this time, a new window appeared on the screen. Do you wish to continue playback? Accessing classified segment, category X. Varric hesitated only for a second before pressing yes. The image loaded. A new battlefield appeared, one the galaxy had never seen before, and what he saw next made his blood run cold. The dark room glowed faintly from the screen's blue light. Commander Varric sat still, his eyes fixed on the new footage. The words, "Classified Segment Category X," blinked once and disappeared. The video began without sound, only the soft hum of static. The camera showed a different battlefield. The sky was darker now, covered with clouds that looked alive. Lightning flashed in patterns that did not seem natural. On the ground, human soldiers stood in the middle of the ruins, their armor cracked, their numbers smaller. Yet their faces were calm. There was no fear, only focus. Varric leaned closer. The human commander, the same woman from before, lifted her helmet and spoke to her soldiers. Her voice was steady. "We are cut off from command. The fleet has fallen back, but we will not surrender. This ground is ours." Her soldiers nodded without question. One of them smiled even as smoke rose around them. "For Earth," he said softly. Varric watched as they began preparing for something. They set up strange metal pylons in a circle. Each soldier connected their suit's power line to the nearest pylon. The readings on the side of the screen began to spike. Energy levels increased far beyond safe limits. "What are they doing?" Varric whispered to himself. The screen flickered. A new display appeared, showing life signals turning unstable. Their heartbeats raced. Neural energy climbed higher. The camera zoomed in on one soldier's eyes. They glowed faintly, with a white light. Then a voice spoke through the recording system. It was the human commander again. "Emotion is not weakness, it is power. And power is meant to protect." The sky above them cracked open. A bright pulse shot upward, spreading across the battlefield like a wave. Enemy ships in the air started to lose control. Their engines failed one after another. The Kryn raiders screamed through the comms as their systems shut down. Varric's heart pounded. He realized what he was seeing. The humans had turned their emotions into energy. Not through machines, but through their own will. The sensors on the footage went wild. The energy they released was stronger than any known weapon. The soldiers stood together as the light surrounded them. The commander raised her hand and gave a single order. Phase 3. Every human activated the charge in sync. The ground exploded with light. The enemy fleet disintegrated mid-air. The camera broke into static again, but one last frame remained visible. Every human still standing, eyes open, glowing faintly, motionless. Then silence. Varric sat frozen. He replayed that final moment again and again. The readings confirmed it. The humans had released more energy than a battleship reactor. But they did not run. They stayed, channeling everything until the very end. Trella entered the room quietly. "Commander, you are still watching?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, and I think I understand now why they were banned," she frowned. "Because they were dangerous." Varric shook his head. "Because they were too strong, too human." He turned the sound back on. The final seconds of the video replayed again. This time, faint audio came through, crackling words hidden in the static. "Humanity endures. When systems fail, we stand." Trella covered her mouth. That was her voice. Varric looked at her. "The Council said humans were unstable." But look at this. They found a way to use their emotions as power. They didn't break. They evolved. The system beeped with a warning. Unauthorized data detected. Report to security. Trella looked nervous. We should stop. The council will find out. Varric stood up. Let them. The galaxy deserves to know what really happened. He copied the footage again onto another crystal and locked it in his coat. He walked to the window and stared at the stars outside. His reflection looked tired but alive. He finally understood the weight behind that last word in the first file. Watch, Trella asked softly. Do you think they're all gone? Varric did not answer. His eyes stayed on the stars. Some say humans vanished after the war, but maybe they didn't die. Maybe they became something else. Outside the academy, the night was silent. The stars shimmered faintly as if listening. Somewhere far away, a satellite long forgotten came online for the first time in years. Its light blinked once, sending a signal across the void. Inside Varric's quarters, his screen turned on by itself. The human commander's face appeared again, this time clearer. She spoke one sentence before the signal faded. If you are watching this, the war is not over. Varric stepped back, stunned. The message ended, leaving the screen black. For a long moment he stood in silence. Then he whispered, "They are not gone." The lights in the academy flickered as if something unseen moved through its systems. Deep within the galactic network, the words, Unit 9 reactivation detected, flashed for less than a second before disappearing. The Council would soon realize someone had opened the truth. The Galactic Council chamber stood high above the capital city of Varnus. Prime. The floor was made of dark glass, reflecting the stars that hung beyond the transparent dome. Representatives of hundreds of species filled the circle, their voices rising and falling in anger and debate. At the center, Commander Varric stood alone. Guards surrounded him, but he did not resist. In his hands, he carried the small data crystal, the one that held the truth about Earth Unit 9. The Supreme Chancellor, a tall being with silver skin and deep violet eyes, raised her hand for silence. "Commander Varric of the Core Fleet," she said, "you are charged with breaking data security, accessing banned archives, and spreading human propaganda. Do you deny these charges?" Varric's voice was calm. "I do not." The chamber erupted with whispers. The Chancellor narrowed her eyes. "Then why did you open the file?" Varric looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of each representative. "Because lies do not build peace. The truth does." He placed the data crystal on the central console. The hologram activated, showing the footage from Earth Unit 9. The human soldiers appeared on the floor of the chamber, fighting against the Kryn raiders, glowing with impossible energy. Many delegates gasped. Some stood in disbelief. Others shook their heads, refusing to watch. Varric spoke clearly. "This is what you hid from the galaxy. This is why you banned them." The Chancellor struck her staff against the floor. "Enough. The Council's records are classified for a reason. Humanity's actions were a threat to every living world. They broke the laws of war." Varric stepped forward. "They fought when every other species would have surrendered. They used their strength to protect. That is not a crime." The Chancellor's voice turned sharp. "You do not understand. Their power came from emotion, from rage, from grief. They destroyed entire fleets with nothing but will. If we had not banned them, they would have burned the galaxy to ash." Varric stared at her. "You fear them because you cannot control them." The room fell silent. The words hung in the air like thunder. The Chancellor glared. "Control brings order. Humanity refused order. Their spirit is chaos." Varric shook his head. "Their spirit is freedom." He turned toward the assembly. "You call them unstable. You say they are too dangerous. But what I saw was discipline, courage, sacrifice. They fought to protect each other, not to rule." Can any of us say the same? Several delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Whispers filled the hall again. For the first time in decades, someone was questioning the official truth. The Chancellor's voice dropped lower. "You think you know the truth, Commander, but you have only seen fragments. The humans did not vanish. They sealed themselves away. Their final act tore space itself. You saw bravery. I saw disaster." She pressed a control on her podium. The chamber lights dimmed, and a new hologram appeared. It showed a vast explosion, a tear in the fabric of space. Planets nearby went dark. Fleets vanished. This, she said, was their final stand. Their emotion created an energy that destroyed half a sector. They were too dangerous to exist. So we erased them. The room fell quiet again. The image faded. Varric spoke softly. You erased them to hide your fear. You called it safety. The Chancellor leaned forward. And would you have risked the galaxy for their pride? Varric raised his head. No, I would have learned from it. I would have remembered them. Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. A guard rushed in. Council command, unauthorized transmissions spreading across the network. The Chancellor frowned. From where? The guard hesitated. From within this building. The holographic projectors flickered. Every screen in the chamber changed at once. The same footage of Earth Unit 9 began to play again. Only this time, the signal was not from Varric's crystal. It was live. The human commander's image appeared, clearer than ever before. She looked straight at the council. Her voice filled the room. You cannot erase truth. You cannot ban memory. Humanity stands. Gasps filled the chamber. The Chancellor froze, her eyes wide. This is impossible, she whispered. They are gone. Varric felt a chill run down his spine. No, he said quietly. They were waiting. The hologram of the human commander saluted. If you hear this, know that we left something behind. The galaxy must decide, fear or freedom. Then the signal cut out, leaving only silence. The Chancellor shouted, Find the source! Shut it down! Varric turned to her. You can't, it's everywhere now. Outside the council building across the galaxy, the message repeated on every screen, every ship, every terminal. The face of the human commander looked out from every corner of space. In the Academy on Orion 9, Trella watched it with tears in her eyes. Across distant worlds, soldiers and citizens alike saw the same message. For the first time in history, the galaxy heard the human voice again. Varric stood tall in the center of the council chamber. You can't bury them anymore, he said quietly. The truth is awake. The Chancellor's face turned pale. Then we are already too late. High above the capital, deep in the void, something stirred. Old satellites came online. Faint signals blinked in forgotten frequencies. The humans were not gone. They were answering the call. Night covered the Academy on Orion 9. The stars outside looked calm, but inside the great halls, silence was heavy. Every recruit had seen the broadcast. The face of the human commander still echoed in their minds, the voice that said, Humanity stands. Some called it a trick. Others whispered that it was real. No one could sleep. In his quarters, Commander Varric sat at his desk watching the same message again. Each replay made him feel something deep inside, respect and a quiet fear. The Council had lost control of the truth. The signal had spread faster than light, reaching systems untouched for centuries. Suddenly, his screen flickered. A line of text appeared. Incoming encrypted transmission. Origin unknown, he frowned. Accept transmission. The room dimmed and a voice spoke through static. It was the same human woman from the footage, but this time she was speaking clearly. To anyone still loyal to truth, this is Commander Alina Hayes of Earth Unit 9. If you are receiving this, then the silence is broken. Varric's pulse quickened. The signal was not just a recording. It was live, Alina continued. We left behind a failsafe when we saw the Council's fear. We knew they would bury our memory. So we buried something deeper, a signal, hidden inside the galactic network, waiting for a spark. Trella rushed into the room, holding a data pad. Commander, the Academy systems are going crazy. The central core is activating something old. I think it's linked to that signal. Varric turned to her. Show me. She placed the pad on the table. Across the galaxy map, hundreds of points of light appeared, one after another. Abandoned satellites, old outposts, forgotten ships, all coming online. This shouldn't be possible, Trella whispered. Some of those systems have been dead for 100 years, the voice continued from the transmission. We left echoes of ourselves in the network. Fragments of code, pieces of our minds stored in machines. Humanity's fall was not an end, it was preparation. The lights on the map grew brighter, forming the shape of a vast network across the galaxy. Varek stared at it. They built a hidden system right under the Council's nose. Then the Academy's lights flickered. The main screens turned blue, and a hologram appeared above them. It was Alina Hayes, standing tall in her combat armor, her image clear and strong. "Attention to all worlds," she said. "We do not come to conquer. We come to remind." Her eyes moved as if she could see everyone watching. "The Council feared what we could become, but we never wanted power. We wanted unity. The fire in us is the same fire that built your worlds. You feared our emotion, but emotion is not the enemy. It is the source of strength," Trella whispered. "She's speaking to everyone." Varek nodded. "Every world with a signal will hear her." The recruits ran into the hallways, watching in shock as the hologram appeared in the sky above the Academy. Across the stars, on planets, stations, and ships, the same message played. Humanity's voice returned everywhere at once. Alina continued, "You banned our name. You erased our history, but we never left. The human spirit cannot be deleted. And now we call on all who still believe in truth. Stand with us. Watch. Remember." The message ended, leaving silence. Trella turned to Varek. "What does this mean? Are they alive?" Before he could answer, the Academy's radar blared an alarm. The officer on duty shouted through the comm. "Unknown fleet emerging from deep space. No identification codes." Varek ran to the command deck. The main display showed dark shapes moving through hyperspace lanes. Dozens of ships, sleek, angular, silent. Their hulls reflected no light. Trella stared at the screen. "Who are they?" Varek's voice was low. "Humans." The fleet exited hyperspace near the outer rim. They made no broadcast, no warning. But the symbols on their hulls matched the old Earth Legion insignia, 3 stars in a circle. All over the galaxy, military forces scrambled, unsure whether to prepare for war or peace. The Council called emergency meetings, shouting about threats and invasions. But Varek felt no fear. He felt something else, a deep calm, the same kind he had seen in the old footage. The ships moved slowly, positioning themselves in a wide arc. Then as one, they sent a short burst of signal. The message was simple. "We never stopped watching." Trella looked at Varek. "They were waiting all this time." "Yes," he said quietly, "waiting for us to remember." Outside the Academy, the recruits gathered under the night sky. They watched as distant lights moved across the horizon, too steady to be stars. Some fell to their knees, others saluted. The galaxy that once mocked humanity now held its breath, Varek whispered. "The awakening has begun," and far across the void, the human fleet turned toward the heart of the galaxy, engines glowing like small suns. The silent watchers had returned. The Council's chambers were filled with panic. Holographic screens hovered in every direction, showing the same image, a vast formation of unknown ships entering the Orion Rim. Every analysis confirmed what they feared. Those ships were of human design. High Chancellor Dern stood at the center table, his silver robe trembling as he shouted, "This is impossible. They were destroyed ages ago. Humanity cannot exist." An officer replied, "Sir, the signals match ancient Earth technology. Their fleet structure follows the Legion's doctrine. Triple arc formation, heavy front line, command ships behind. No species today uses that pattern." The room fell silent. On the edge of known space, the human fleet slowed to a crawl. Massive carriers the size of cities glided among smaller escorts. Their metal hulls bore the symbol of the old Earth Legion, a circle of 3 stars, shining like a forgotten crown. Inside the flagship Eternal Dawn, Commander Alina Hayes stood at the central deck. The years had changed her. Her eyes carried both wisdom and sorrow. Around her, crew members, humans preserved through hidden cryovaults, worked with calm precision. "Status of the awakening?" she asked. Her first officer, Captain Mirek, replied, 72 worlds have received the signal. Half of them have begun questioning the Council's authority. The truth is spreading faster than they can contain it." "Good," Alina said quietly. It's time they remember who we were. She walked to the forward viewport. Beyond it stretched the glittering stars, the same stars humanity had once conquered before being erased from history. "Open a channel to all systems," she ordered. Across the galaxy, communication networks trembled. The image of Alina Hayes appeared again, but this time she was not a flickering hologram. She was alive and speaking directly. "This is Commander Alina Hayes of Earth's Legion," she said. "To all free minds, this is not an invasion. This is our return. We do not seek revenge, only remembrance." Her voice carried through thousands of stations, ships, and cities. On the Academy of Orion 9, Varric and Trella stood with hundreds of recruits as they watched her broadcast. She continued, "When we were declared a danger, we accepted exile rather than war. But we never stopped watching. We built sanctuaries beyond the edges of the known galaxy, waiting for the moment when fear would no longer rule truth." The recruits whispered to one another. They had been taught that humanity was wild, emotional, and uncontrollable, but Alina's words were calm, measured, and filled with strength. "Humanity," she said, "was not perfect, but perfection was never our goal. We built because we dreamed. We fought because we loved. We survived because we refused to give up. And now we return not as ghosts, but as guides." Her final words echoed through the halls of the Academy. "You called us a danger, yet even now we offer peace. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from." The signal ended. Trella turned to Varric. "She doesn't sound like a conqueror. She sounds like someone who still believes in us." Varric nodded slowly. "That's what makes her dangerous to the Council. Hope spreads faster than fear." In the council hall, Chancellor Dern slammed his hand on the table. "Prepare the fleets. If they set one foot inside regulated space, they will face destruction." An advisor hesitated. "But sir, their ships outclass ours by generations. If we attack, we may lose the core worlds. Then we lose with pride." Dern barked. "No ghosts from the past will dictate our future." But while the Council prepared for war, many of their own soldiers began to doubt. In the orbital outpost, Vega Station, Commander Jorik watched the human fleets approach. He whispered to his second, "They don't fire. They don't threaten. They're just watching." "Orders, sir?" Jorik looked at the stars. "Hold fire." For now, across dozens of fleets, similar decisions were made. The first shots of war were delayed by something stronger than fear, curiosity. Back aboard the Eternal Dawn, Alina watched the readings. No retaliation. "Not yet," Mirek smiled faintly. "They're listening." "Then we move forward," Alina said. "Set course for the cradle system." The navigation officer froze. "You mean Earth, ma'am?" "Yes," she said softly. "It's time we go home." The order spread through the fleet. Engines roared to life, and one by one, the ships aligned with a single destination, an ancient blue world lost in myths. As they entered hyperspace, Alina looked down at a small medallion hanging from her neck, the last piece of old Earth she carried. "We buried our world to protect it," she murmured. "Let's see if it still remembers us." Far away, Varric and Trella watched the news feeds. The human fleet was moving toward an uncharted sector, once labeled Origin System, Trella whispered. "They're heading to Earth." Varric's eyes burned with quiet fire. "Then so are we." He turned to the Academy recruits. "Prepare your ships. If the legends of humanity are true, we need to see the truth with our own eyes." The recruits cheered. Some were afraid, others inspired, but all of them felt the pull of something ancient, something real. And as fleets from every corner of the galaxy began to move toward the same destination, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. Humanity was returning home, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy held its breath. Every network, every transmission, every sensor pointed toward one destination: Earth. The lost home of humanity, erased from maps and buried under myths, now glowed again in the darkness of space. Commander Alina Hayes stood aboard her flagship, Eternal Dawn, as the planet came into view. It was silent and scarred, yet alive. Thick clouds shimmered with lightning, and blue oceans reflected the light of distant suns. Her eyes softened. "We are home," she whispered. Behind her, Captain Mirek reported, "Fleet formation stable. The entire Council Armada is in pursuit." "They've sent everything they have," Alina nodded. "They'll arrive soon enough. But this ends here, not with destruction, but with truth." Down on the surface, ancient human structures still stood, broken towers, metal ruins covered in moss. As landing crafts descended, dust rose from the forgotten soil. Human soldiers stepped out, their boots touching Earth's ground for the first time in centuries. Trella and Varric followed in a separate ship, flying among dozens of curious alien vessels. They were not part of the Council fleet. They had defected. Around them, alien recruits from across the galaxy joined in silence. None of them came to fight. They came to witness. Varric looked out at the human landing zones. "They're not here for war," he said quietly. "They're here for remembrance." Trella nodded. The footage was only the beginning. This is the truth they wanted to hide. On the surface, Commander Alina led her troops to an old memorial site, a massive stone wall carved with names. The letters were half erased, but the title remained clear: Earth Legion Unit 9. She knelt, touching the cold surface. Around her, her soldiers stood in silent respect. Cameras from every corner of the galaxy broadcast the moment live. Billions watched as humanity, once banned and mocked, returned not as conquerors, but as children finding their home again. High above, the Council fleet arrived in orbit. Chancellor Dern appeared on the command link, his voice filled with fury. "Commander Hayes, you stand in violation of every treaty. Surrender your fleet or be destroyed." Alina raised her head. "We surrendered once before, Chancellor. You turned our sacrifice into fear. We will not repeat your mistakes." "Then you choose death," Dern shouted. "No," she said firmly. "We choose truth," she signaled her ship. Across the Eternal Dawn's control deck, officers activated a final transmission, one last piece of the banned footage. It played across every galactic screen. The image showed Unit 9 in their final moments, surrounded, exhausted, dying, but refusing to fall. Their commander's voice echoed, "If we fall, let them see what we were. Let them remember." The footage ended not in death, but in light. The human soldiers had unleashed something beyond technology. Their unity, their courage, their will to protect one another. It was not a weapon. It was a message carried through time itself. When the broadcast ended, silence swept through the galaxy. Billions of alien citizens stared at their screens. Many wept, others bowed their heads. For the first time, they understood why the Council feared humanity. Not because they were monsters, but because they were a mirror of everything the galaxy had forgotten. Back in orbit, Dern's fleet hesitated. Orders to fire were ignored. Captains turned off their targeting systems. One by one, ships powered down their weapons. Commander Alina's voice broke through the silence. "Humanity is not a threat. Humanity is the reminder that courage still exists. We are not your past enemies. We are your reflection." On the Academy world, students gathered in the main hall watching the broadcast. Some raised their hands over their hearts. Others whispered a new oath. "We are the defenders of truth." Varric and Trella stood at the edge of Earth's sky, looking down at the blue planet. "She did it," Trella said softly. "She made them see," Varric smiled faintly. "No law can ban a spirit like that. The Council forgot. Humanity always finds a way." As the light of dawn spread across Earth's surface, the human fleet turned off their shields. Their weapons powered down completely. For the first time, the galaxy saw their true colors, a fleet of explorers, protectors, and survivors. Commander Alina looked at the planet below and whispered, "We kept our promise. We came home." The Eternal Dawn broadcast one final signal across every star system. It carried no command, no warning, only a single message. You cannot ban courage. You cannot silence humanity. The words repeated again and again, echoing through space, written into every receiver and every heart. And as the fleets dispersed and the stars returned to quiet, a new era began, an age where no species would ever be erased again, and where humanity's legend lived on not in fear, but in respect, because in the end, it was never about power. It was about remembrance, and the galaxy would never forget them again.